The Strathclyde Centre for Environmental Law and Governance contributed to the Smart Cities conference that recently took place at the University of Strathclyde in organizing two sessions on the second day. The first session was on environment and climate change and energy related matters, and the second one was more focusing around planning. The conference was supported by Create and Horizon, very generously supported, and the main organizer was Professor Lillian Edwards from the Centre for Internet Law and Policy of the University of Strathclyde. At the conference, I personally contributed with a presentation titled Cities and Climate Change: Are Cities Smarter Than States? And what I looked in the presentation wasn't really the examples of cities that label themselves as smart and have carbon neutral programs or almost new cities like Masdar in the Emirates and so forth. What I was interested was in looking at what cities have a potential to do, not within their own urban environment to fight climate change, and they indeed have a role to play, but in the bigger picture. So actually my presentation was much about finance and was about what cities could do if they decide to divest from fossil fuel investments. And this was triggered by a recent piece of news that Oslo has agreed to divest its pension fund from coal. So the paper goes on to explore what would happen if bigger cities like London or New York do the same thing, and puts this in the framework of the current international climate change negotiations, not as an alternative route to deal with climate change, but as a further option that could be considered as promising in dealing with climate change. The conference was incredibly interesting. It was one of a kind where a lot of disciplines came together. Law, urban experts, IT, computer experts, architecture, you name it. If I were to take home a few key messages, I would think there would be three that I would like to highlight. One very important is that smart cities should not just be about apps, collection of data, gadgets. Obviously these are very interesting, very important, driverless cars and so forth and so forth. But smart cities should be much more than that. So what is a smart city? I think what comes out is that even from the conference, we all have slightly different ideas. Smart city is in the eyes of the beholder, if you want. But what I do think is that a city cannot be considered to be smart if it's not also equitable and sustainable. And it was interesting to see how smart cities can also be that if they reach out to the whole population and not those who are consumers, clients of the specific gadgets, apps, and so forth. And the third thing, which was extremely interesting at the conference, was the link between smart city and politics. Now, I wasn't expecting this, but to actually see how in some countries, and the country that comes to mind is India, smart city was high on the agenda of the government, and apparently it happens in many other countries. This is quite revealing to see how high on the agenda smart city is. It's not just a research agenda, it's not just an agenda of mayors and so forth, it's at the highest level of government. And from our side, the role that environmental law and governance has to play in devising this agenda and pushing it forward and controlling it, if you want, is extremely fascinating. I think the best thing that will come out from this conference, as many other conferences, is that many people, many disciplines that were not connected before will be able to continue to talk together. And I was talking to a lot of colleagues who came from other disciplines saying that they want to continue this conversation. And SCELG, the center, is very much about that, bringing other disciplines to talk with environmental lawyers and bringing that forward. But also there will be a practical follow-up, which will be a special issue devoted to smart cities, published by Computers and Law. And this will be a collection of short pieces that will highlight the main outcomes, the main points raised at the conference. And if you want to know more about the conference, about the role that SCELG had in the conference and the outputs, please do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to share this information with you.